Hey everybody, and welcome to This Woman Can. My guest this week is Carol Stewart, who is the founder of Abounding Solutions and author of Quietly Visible, Leading with Influence and Impact as an Introverted Woman, which was listed as one of the 10 best self-development books written by women to read during lockdown by Be Your Own. She's an executive, career and leadership coach, specializing in introverted women who are senior leaders. Carol coaches women to lead with confidence, influence, and impact. She has been the featured expert in Women and Home magazine, Good Housekeeping magazine, The Telegraph, and other media publications. She's a LinkedIn Top Voice UK 4 years running and has received awards for developing women leaders. Not only that, Carol hosts the Quietly Visible podcast and is a semi-regular columnist for the Sheffield Telegraph and a TEDx speaker. So, Carol, all those accolades. Welcome to This Woman Can.
Hi, Janice, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And it's so different for me. I'm very much an extrovert. To speak to an extrovert, it's going to be a great conversation. So let's kick off my usual question, Carol. How did you get to where you are today?
Right, so it's 10 years since I've been doing what I'm doing in my own business. And initially, I worked for the UK Ministry of Justice, was what was called the Group Court Manager, had responsibility for a group of magistrates' courts. In 2011, the organisation was going through a restructure, and my role was being deleted along with my colleagues across London, across the organisation. And so I thought, well, what could I do now? I could have been redeployed into something that I didn't want to do, or I could have taken control of my career. And I decided I wanted to be in control of my career. And I saw this as an opportunity for me to do something different. And when I thought about what it was that I could do, I looked back over my career, what it was that I was good at and what I had enjoyed. And that thing was coaching. Because coaching had always been an add-on to what I did as a leader. And I got great satisfaction out of just helping somebody to have that belief in themselves and then go on and achieve what they wanted to achieve, even if it meant them exiting the organisation. So I decided that I was going to start my own coaching business. And I'd done a lot of in-house coaching training, but I didn't have a formal coaching qualification. And I wanted to get a deeper understanding of the psychology that underpinned coaching. So I took voluntary redundancy, enrolled at university and did a master's in coaching psychology at the same time as starting my coaching business.
Excellent, excellent. So you're in a situation where your job is at risk and you sound like right now, when you talk about it, you were pretty clear on what you wanted to do. But was that really the case, or did you have any doubts about, what next?
No, I didn't. I was very clear about what I wanted to do, even so much so that before I actually left work, I compressed my hours and did a 9-day fortnight so that I could then spend that one day a fortnight doing the research on, because I'd never run a business before. Doing my research and getting information on running a business.
Excellent.
So although I was very clear, there were many of my colleagues who weren't.
Right.
And I remember one particular colleague who I worked quite closely with, and she'd been having sleepless nights and she was quite stressed because she was worrying about, she hadn't opted for redundancy, but she wasn't certain whether she would have a position in the new organisation or whether she would end up being given a compulsory redundancy. Right. And that really sort of highlighted me the difference when you are clear about what it is that you want compared to when there is that uncertainty.
Yeah. So how did you, one of the things I obviously work with women who are in transition and stuff like that. And one of the things, there are a couple of things. First, it's money. It's a big thing that stops them. And second is having clarity about what to do next. So just in brief, how did you develop that level of clarity and, knowing what you wanted to do? Because that was a level of certainty there in an uncertain situation.
Yeah. So when I thought about what I could do next, and I thought about, as I said, what my skills were and what I really enjoyed doing, what my strengths were, what I was passionate about, And that thing was coaching. Initially, I thought about counselling,
Right.
but then I thought that because I had a few years ago done an introduction to counselling skills course, and I did sort of think about maybe pursuing that. But then when I thought about it, I thought, no, I wanted to work with people in something which was more solution focused in terms of that empowering them to achieve their goals and that sort of thing. And coaching was more aligned with what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so that's why I opted for coaching.
Fabulous, fabulous. So what do you think, like, you had the clarity, everything was going great, but what do you think was unique about going into business? Probably I'm not going to second guess age and stuff like that, but we're a little maturer in age now. So what do you think was unique or different about pivoting at that point? What did you see as the challenges or opportunities?
I mean, I saw, because I was in my 40s, my early 40s, mid 40s at the time. And I thought, if I don't do it now, I probably never will.
Yeah. So it's not having those regrets.
That's right. Yes. I mean, prior to that, I'd never once thought about running my own business. And so, people thought, well, I'd been in the organization for almost 28 years, started off in a very junior role, worked my way up to a senior leader. Prior to that, I thought I'd probably just go to the next level, stay there till I retire. But and people kept saying to me, oh, you shouldn't do the right thing. Is that what you really want to do? And another thing what helped as well was 2 years prior to that, I'd become a Christian as well.
Right.
And so I also saw it as an opportunity to put my money where my mouth was and just put my faith in God, so to speak.
I hear that. So is there anything, Carol, you wish you'd known when you embarked on this reinvention? I know you did a lot of homework and stuff like that. You did a lot of preparation, but is there anything that slipped through the cracks, or you haven't thought about, or just suddenly realized, wow, that is a real thing?
That it's not going to happen overnight, because I think at the time when I was starting out, there was a lot, particularly on social media, you can have a 6-figure business in 30 days, that sort of thing. And when you don't see that happening straight away, you think that, oh gosh, am I doing this? Is there something wrong with me? Maybe I'm not meant to do this, that sort of thing. So just to understand that it is it's a marathon, not a sprint. And make sure that I have the right level of support, and the support network as well to support me.
Excellent. And I definitely hear that, because one of the things I had to learn was definitely patience in my own patience with myself and the results, because one of the things I discovered is that I was measuring my level of success based on being in the corporate world, and it was I'm in a different environment now, so I couldn't measure like for like. So instead of beating myself up and not achieving those targets, I had to look at the targets that were important, and they really came down to more of my values, opposed to, say, financial.
Yeah, and that's what I did, was I redefined what success meant to me. And it wasn't just financial. It wasn't just about the number of zeros. It was more than that. For me, it was also about making a difference, being authentic, living my values, and doing work that I was passionate about.
Excellent. I'm glad you found that. So describe, Carol, one of the biggest challenges you've had in your career, and how you overcame it, and the lessons you learned.
So when I started my business, having left employment, like I said, I've been there for almost 28 years. It was a big shift to go from being an employee to working for myself. And so not only that, after my redundancy money ran out, the panic started to set in a bit. Because what I did was I sort of used the redundancy money to pay myself each month for a period of time. But then once that finished, and I still wasn't sort of generating the sort of income I was making when I was in employment, the panic started to set in a bit. And I remember it was sort of coming towards the end of, I think it was 2013, the end of 2013. And I thought, right, in the new year, I'm going to look for a part-time job, so that I've still got that income coming in that will help me to continue to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did in that January. Started looking for work, looking for a part-time job, but my heart just wasn't in it. And I was doing all these job searches, filling out these application forms. And I thought to myself, you know what, the effort that I'm putting into looking for something, I could be putting into my business. And I know myself that if I had got a part-time job, the kind of commitment that I give to what I do, it would be more than a part-time job. And I probably wouldn't have time to spend on my business. So I decided to, the effort that I'm putting into that, I'm going to put into my business. And also, as well, to put my trust in God. You know, I call myself a Christian, take it at his word. And that's what I literally did.
Excellent. Because as you said, there's a level of nerve-wracking. It's a bit nerve-wracking. You're thinking, where's the next paycheck coming from? So how did you get over that level of self-doubt? Because it is a little bit of a wobble. You have a little bit of wobble. Am I doing the right thing? So how do you get past that self-doubt?
It's recognizing that is what's going on. And you know, I think that self-doubt and fear is probably one of the biggest cripplers for women in terms of them pursuing what it is that they want. And it's, for me, it was about looking, what was the worst that could happen and what I could do if the worst was to happen. And then once I had that reassurance that I had options no matter what, then, you know, that takes that away. And when you're starting out in business, you've been used to a regular paycheck each month, and then to go from not knowing where the next income is going to come from, to me that was a big test. It was a big test. But when you start to worry and you get anxious, and then when you're anxious, you don't perform as well as you could. It affects your confidence. So it's recognizing that is what is going on, and just putting in measures in place. I mean, I was fortunate; I didn't have to go out and get a part-time job in the end. But you know, if someone is in that sort of situation, then that might be what they need to do. It might be that you rent out a spare bedroom. It might be that you do something just to have that income coming in. Because if you're worrying about your finances, then that is just going to make you feel anxious, and you're not going to be at your best.
And it's great that you said that, because as you said, we always have options, but sometimes we can be so deep into just focusing on the challenge that we can't see the solutions. So you know, and I think you were probably in that mindset thinking about that. And both of us being in coaching, I suppose it's something we come across quite often, and we just have to ask those questions. You know, what are you not seeing? What are the options that are presented? What could you do differently? So I like that you overcame that and thought some real, all that effort I'm putting to that part-time work. Whew, actually putting to my own business. You know? So, I hear that. So Carol, if you had to start your career over from scratch, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently?
I would say just go for what I want, and don't hesitate, don't doubt yourself. By the time I came to start my business, I had a higher level of self-belief, but I hadn't always, you know, throughout my career. But not to doubt myself, and just to go for what I want, and to also to not be so risk averse.
Right. You talk about, you know, you work with introverted leaders, and you're an introverted leader yourself. So what qualities or characteristics are probably more unique to an introverted leader or an introverted woman, as opposed to somebody who's a little bit more out there?
Yeah. So it's all about how we interact and engage with the world, and how we are energized as well. So people who are introverted they're more concerned with things which are internal to the mind. And so if things where there's a lot of external stimulation or external things going on around them can be overly stimulating. And in those sorts of environments, it can be draining, and which may make us want to sort of retreat and go inwards. Whereas people who are extroverted, they're energized by external events and things that are happening around them, being around people that can be energizing for them. And they thrive in those sorts of environments. And so it's understanding how we're wired, to to know how we are in different environments. I mean, there's a lot of misconceptions around introversion. Many people think that someone who's introverted is shy, they lack confidence, they don't like public speaking. But that can be applied to people who are extroverted as well.
True. Very true.
And it may be that people who are introverted are more quieter, but they may not be. They may be quite sociable, but it's just that being in certain environments can be draining for them. And so you may find that when you're among a group of introverts and there's a lot of people around, they may seem a bit withdrawn, or they may seem a bit quiet, and it's probably because they're feeling drained from all that external stimulation, and they may just want to just recharge, to go inwards and recharge.
Yeah. So how did being more of an introvert impact your transition into entrepreneurship, if at all?
It probably didn't so much. It was probably more so in that I had to, when it came to things around like networking, being in those sorts of environments, it's about, so introverts typically don't like networking, because introverts typically don't like making small talk. And the environments of networking can be overstimulating, because if there's a lot of activity, a lot of people around, it can be overstimulating. So it's not that I don't enjoy networking, it's being aware that that sort of environment can be quite draining if I spend too long in it. And so it's about making sure that in advance that, you know, I'm as energized as possible, so that when I go into it, and then after that, I make sure that I have the time to recharge after as well.
Yeah, I hear that. And hear you saying that. I'm not the networking, I'm not sure many people like networking, but I know I definitely have to kind of get ready, prepare myself, because you know, there's always, it's an environment where you feel like you may be judged, or you, like you say, you have to make this small talk, and how do you make it interesting? And if it's not interesting enough, well, they're going to like me. So all these things, I think, networking is a special beast. Definitely a special beast. So Carol, what advice would you share with any woman embarking on their own transition right now? Because there's lots happened over the past year or so.
So what I would say is have a plan. So get clear about what it is that you want. Absolutely. What is it that you want to do, what that looks like, try and visualize what that looks and feels like as well, and then work out what it is that you need to do in order to make it happen. If you're not sure about what it is that you want to do, think about what your skills are, what your strengths are, what you enjoy doing, whether you want to work for yourself, whether you want to work for an organization. If you're wanting to work for yourself, think about how you can utilize your skills and your strengths and what you're passionate about to make an income. You know, where is there a gap in the market for what it is that you do? Or get clear about what it is that you want to do. If you're wanting to continue in employment, working for somebody, then think about the sorts of organizations that you want to work for, and the values of the organizations that you want to work for as well. And, you know, utilize LinkedIn to have a look at those organizations, to see what, you know, who works there, maybe connected people that work at those organizations, and find out what it is actually like working for them as well. Because quite often organizations, you know, they'll have their value statements on their website, but what they don't actually walk the talk. So it's you know, speaking to people who are in the organization to find out whether that is the kind of organization that you want to work for.
Excellent. That's great advice. Like you say, some organizations only show the shiny bits, so we have to do our due diligence to find out.
That's right. And you can do that. You can find out. There's websites like Glassdoor where you can go on and see what people as employees are saying about an organization as well. It's great advice.
Thank you. It's very solid advice. So thanks very much for that. So Carolyn, in your estimated opinion, your considered opinion or whatever, what do you think holds women back from going for their goals?
I think I would say for the majority of times it's themselves. So even though they may, I know when I get my clients come for coaching, they may present a particular challenge, a particular issue. It might be that they're not getting promoted. It might be that they're not having the influence that they want. But I would say 9 times out of 10, there's internal stuff that we need to deal with before we can deal with the external. That imposter syndrome, self-doubt, fear fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of success. And once we deal with those internal challenges and those personal, what I call mindset issues, then we can focus on the external.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So we're coming down to our last few questions. We'll get you out of the hot seat, Carol. So share with us a success quote or a mantra that you use and why it's meaningful to you.
So one for me, it's a scripture, and it's Matthew 6:25 to 34, I think it is. And it talks about not worrying about what you're going to eat, what you're going to wear, how you're going to, live, that sort of thing. Because, and then it talks about how the flowers, they're all clothed, and how the birds have all that they want to eat. You don't see them worrying about where they're going to get their next food from, and that we should seek God before everything, and then all that will be added to us. And that was something that I applied when I was going through that difficult stage where the understatement was when head went out and I was worrying about how I'm going to pay the bills and that sort of thing. I literally applied that. So anytime that I started to worry, I would apply that to my situation and remember that.
Excellent, excellent. It put you in good stead, led you well. Led you well.
Yes.
So if you could choose your own mentor, who would it be and why?
Michelle Obama.
Oh, she's a popular one.
She is, isn't she? I just think she's a phenomenal woman. She holds her own.
Yes.
She's got, when you sort of look back over her history, her career, what she's been through, and yet she has been, she's dignified, she's empowering, she's motivated. And when you think what she's been through as the First Lady of the United States of America, as a Black woman as well, and was able to deliver that with such poise and confidence. Yes.
Yeah, and just literally just make it brush off her shoulder and say.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
And not let it bother us. So yeah, you're right. Yeah, definitely a lot to admire in Michelle. Definitely.
Yeah.
So what are the 3 things, Carol, have you learned about yourself during your career?
One of the first that getting to know myself, I think it's been like getting to know who I really am.
Right.
Is important, because once I really got to know and accept myself as who I am, that has enabled me to become all that I want to be, or go after what I want and not hold myself back. And I learned that was what I was probably doing many years ago. Another thing that I've learned about myself is that, what my strengths are, and what it is that I'm good at, and where my passions lie as well. And when I'm operating in my strengths and utilizing them, that is when I'm at my optimal. So I know when I am at my optimal, and I know the things that enable me to be at my optimal. I know the things that I don't enjoy particularly doing, which it's not always a good thing, because then you sometimes tend to leave those things that you don't enjoy doing. But I know what my strengths are. And another thing that I've learned about myself is that I'm a very resilient woman. Yeah.
Excellent. And I love the bit you said about accepting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, just to dig just a tiny bit deeper, what do you think, probably one of the key things you weren't accepting about who you were that you do now that have made you successful?
I think it was one, introversion. So I grew up in Sheffield, only Black girl in my class.
Yeah.
And even though I didn't experience any direct racism, there was a particular experience when I was, I think I was in the first year of junior school, that really made me realize how different I was. And there was a game. We went through this phase of playing a game. It was me and like 3 of my white friends, and they always wanted me to be the maid or the servant, and didn't feel right to me.
Yeah.
That I was always being the one that was being picked to do that. And so when I complained and I said, well, it's not fair, they'd say, let's take a vote. And of course, they all voted for me to be. But back then, I didn't have the confidence to say, no, I'm not going to do it. And I'm going to go find someone else to play with. And that made me realize that I was different, and probably without even realizing it, didn't really accept myself as I was, as an introverted Black girl, with my hair, my natural Afro hair, as well. Because as a Black girl, I didn't see people like me in the media. When you saw what the media ideal of beauty was, it did not look like me. And also being introverted as well, you know, you see the ideal. There's a term called the extrovert ideal. Susan Cain, who wrote a book called The Power of Introverts in the World That Can't Stop Talking, talks about the extrovert ideal. And it's that is a widely held belief that the ideal self is outward, gregarious, and comfortable in the spotlight.
Right.
And so if you don't fit that ideal, then you think that, well, you know, is it me? But as I've come to accept myself, accept that, you know, I am beautiful. I was a beautiful Black woman, accept my natural Afro hair, and that has just been accept my introversion. That was world changing for me. Game changing for me.
That's lovely. And I hear you, because, you know, I think there's quite a few of us that have probably grown up in that era and had those experiences. And that's another battle we've had to fight. You know, it's another battle, you know, and it's sometimes difficult. It's probably why I'm so particular about who I work with, in the fact that those journeys, I can understand and relate to that journey far more than, say, a Caucasian coach or something like that would, because we wouldn't dismiss it. We understand, you know, it's something that happened, and you may not see the nuances of how it impacted us, but we certainly felt it.
That's right. Yes. And, you know, when I look back and I think, oh my gosh, you know, as a child, like, I remember me, my sister, and maybe you've even played this game, we'd put like towels or cardigans on our heads and pretend that we had like
hair.
Caucasian hair. I mean, imagine what that does to the It's true. It's very true. I think we even used mom's tights, because you could plait it and have a long plait down the back, you know. So it just flashed in my mind. Then I was like, see, the things we did, so we could just swish. I didn't think of that one.
You know? Yeah, very ingenious, very ingenious. So thank you. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And that's a lot of insight. And I think there's like I said, a lot of women, a lot of Black women who've experienced very small, could recount their own experiences. And for us, having lived it, we didn't see.
No, that's
you don't see what's happening. You accepted it because that's how things were. You know, it's not till you get older and you look at it, you go, hang on a minute, was that what happened, or what did that mean, or is that what that meant? And, you know, so thanks. I really thank you for sharing that and being so transparent.
And the sad thing is, there are many women who haven't got to that place of acceptance of who they are, self-acceptance.
Definitely. So last couple of questions, promise. Where will we find you, Carol, on a Saturday morning at 10 a.m?
So Saturday morning at 10 a.m, it all depends. Sometimes I might be meeting up with a friend, meeting up with a family member, or I might just be at home chilling after a busy week. Sometimes I work on a Saturday. I try not to, but sometimes I do.
It happens. And my last question is, what does success feel like to you, Carol?
Success for me is just being at peace and making a difference through my work, and not just making a difference and an impact through my work, but also having the financial recompense from that as well. But having that peace as well about me. So even if I'm not necessarily in a position where I want to be, or I'm still working towards what I want to be, as long as I have that peace and I know that I'm moving forward to achieve, working towards my goals and moving to achieve them, then I feel successful.
Excellent, excellent. And definitely my last question. If people, if women are listening and want to know more about what you do or want to connect with you, how can they do that?
So they can go to my website, aboundingsolutions.com, and fill out the contact button, or connect to me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so do connect with me on LinkedIn, follow me, or send me a connection request.
Excellent, excellent. So thank you for that, Carol. It was a great conversation. As I said, thank you for being so transparent and sharing with me and our listening audience, listening and watching, viewing audience. Thank you so much for joining me this week.
Thank you, Janice. I've enjoyed our chat.
Excellent, thank you.